Proud supporters of Africa this week. AMCON. With us, you are number one.
Nigeria's central bank has revealed that it will be making a raft of recommendations to the Ministry of Finance to help further stabilize the capital markets. We spoke to Dr. Kingsley Mogolu, Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. He presented a paper titled Systemic Risk and Financial Stability, an Emerging Economy Reform Agenda.
The recommendation I talked about was regarding a specific aspect of the work of the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON, and that regards what will befall the loans that went bad, that were given to stockbrokers, which is quite a significant amount of money. And so those are the kinds of things that we will have to make recommendations to the Ministry of Finance, since they also are part owners of AMCON, together with the Ministry at the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Before we talk in detail, I'd like to get an evaluation from you as to the successes and failures of the efforts undertaken by the CBN in the last 2 years for stabilizing the financial system. I mean, previewing the AMCON was the $4 billion bailout for distressed banks. Subsequently, it was mopping up non-performing loans through the AMCON, now mergers and acquisitions. So almost a three-tiered process. Has it worked very well?
It has worked. And broadly, stability is in place at this point, and we're trying to make sure that that stability becomes a long-term phenomenon. If you look at the work of AMCON, the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, it has been quite a very significant stabilizing factor in our efforts to bring stability to the Nigerian financial system. It has bought non-performing loans from the 8 intervened banks and also other banks that are healthy as well. And those purchases have been over 1.6 trillion naira. And it has made those banks now to have very clean balance sheets, and they can now resume lending. The remaining challenges remain the capitalization of those banks, and AMCON will also play a role in that. And AMCON will also play a role in debt restructuring long term. So, and then of course the mergers and acquisitions are going on. We've had a number of memoranda of understanding reached between the banks, boards of directors and management on one hand, and interested investors. We've also launched a new banking model in Nigeria, which has disaggregated risk, and we hope will continue to disaggregate risk and encourage banks to lend to the real economy. So overall, I think the steps that the Nigerian Central Bank has taken to establish financial stability in Nigeria have had quite a significant impact. Of course, the journey is not over. It's a work in progress, but we hope to be able to reach the desired results in the next few months.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's AMCON has come onto the radar with a number of private investors showing interest in merging with Nigerian Asset Management Company. Wale Famurewo spoke to Hewitt Benson, Executive Director of AMCON, to discuss potential partnerships between AMCON and private equity firms.
Assets under management at the moment, we have 1.7 trillion naira worth. With a face value, and face value meaning outstanding principal and accumulated interest of 3.3 trillion naira. But as per our own valuation, the price we paid is 1.7 trillion naira, which we issued bonds for and paid for these loans. And these bonds are currently, as you know, listed on the exchange.
So what type of loans, what type of collateral, what type of assets are you dealing with right now?
We bought all loans. All non-performing loans in the industry, covering from aviation to oil and gas to real estate to margin loans, which is a big thing.
Right.
In terms of collateral value, in terms of collaterals, the asset classes are primarily real estate, securities, as in shares,
right.
Some downstream oil and gas assets, as in tank farms, and aviation, planes.
All right, can imagine. Okay, give us a sense of how investors can work with AMCON then. You just mentioned margin loans. There's really big expectation that AMCON is going to be huge. It's going to drive to a large extent the plans to introduce securities lending to the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Give us a sense of how partners can work with you in this regard.
Okay, there are two issues here that we have to look at. The securities lending is one part. I think it's one that we have been promoting with the view that we own directly or indirectly, because you know we've bought a lot of loans But whilst we bought loans, we haven't, the collateral is not necessarily ours yet. But securities lending is, I think, a way to go, for the simple reason being that the structure to operate securities lending is not necessarily in place yet, you know. But in terms of how investors can partner with us, I think there are a whole host of ways. Number one, I mean, if they're interested in a particular class of assets, particular companies, they can approach those companies towards recapitalizing them, restructuring them, and coming to AMCON, knowing how we operate. Remember, our focus is to try and get these loans reperforming, if possible. So we are open. We aren't necessarily easy on bad debts, you know. I must mention that these loans are worth a lot more to us than most banks. The simple reason being that we have huge powers of recovery, which banks don't have. Another way that private equity investors can partner with us, and this has already started, by the way, is in assets that we already own, either by forfeiture with certain bank executives, as you're aware, Oceanic being one,
right,
or loans that we have foreclosed on, which are impossible to get them reperforming. Now, in those areas, we are in discussions with quite a few private equity investors who would like to buy those assets off us or partner with us. We like these private equity investors to come not just with cash, but with key competence. There must be a differentiating factor. AMCON's quite rich, but what we're looking for is key competence to partner with us in managing these assets towards realizing greater value and hopefully reducing the cost of this resolution exercise.
Still in Nigeria, President Goodluck Jonathan has promised to take tough decisions to bring Nigeria's economy back on course and urged Nigerians to brace up to the challenge in order to make Nigeria productive again. Opeyemi Agbaje, CEO of Resource and Trust, discussed whether the list of nominees for cabinet can indeed deliver on President Jonathan's reform policies.
President Jonathan's defense will be that the Constitution mandates him to choose at least one minister from each state of the Federation. That means a minimum of 36. So expect at least 2 more. But even beyond that, we know that you should actually expect 8 more, as the report suggests that the president intends to appoint 42 ministers.
Senate obviously now is looking at the list, and then from there on they'll be interviewing some of the nominees. Talk us through that vetting process.
Well, I'm told, I've just spoken with one of the nominees, I'm told the Senate's confirmation hearings will start tomorrow. No portfolios are attached, but we expect the senators to grill the nominees on the basis of their antecedents, their specializations, and all of that. It should be a process, I think, that most of it will be complete within the next 2 weeks.
You say no portfolios are attached. Is that by way of what's being released to the public, or that's the status quo? Why would we not have names associated with industry and specific ministries?
That would have been the best practice, quite frankly. Unfortunately, again, the president is insisting on the constitutional stipulations which do not require him to specify in advance which ministries he proposes to send these gentlemen and ladies to. Of course, we have reports and intelligence as to where most people or many people are bound for, but that can only be a rumor until the confirmations are done and then the president formally assigns ministries to these ladies and gentlemen.